Okay, with that, we'll call the.
Microphone, please.
It's on, I think. Lights on. Okay, we'll call the regular meeting of the Los Osos CSD Board of Directors for Thursday, July 6th to order, and join me for the flag salute, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice to see you in person. Could we have a roll call, please?
Director Fourcroy,
Here.
Director Gatchel,
Here.
Director Womack,
Present.
Vice President Oholsky, Vice President Oholsky, President Sisenya.
I'm here. Okay, thank you. With that, we'll go on to agenda item 2, public hearing to adopt resolution submitting the following fiscal year 23-24 assessments and special tax rolls to the San Luis Obispo County tax collector. And you can see there's 6 different assessments that we'll be dealing with. So with that, do we have a presentation?
We have a brief presentation for that. Excuse me. I did want to say our legal counsel, Mr. Green, did find an error in one of our references in the Bay Ridge Estate and Vista de Oro resolutions. So we have those corrected. So when whoever makes the motion, if we could have that as, resolutions as amended as part of that recommendation.
Yeah, the change is just changing it. The code sections that were cited have been repealed and moved to another section. So we just need to cite the other section.
So his legal eye caught that. Thank you.
Change the section on you and you were just copying them last year.
Yes.
All right, got it. Sneaky.
So as we go here, we have 6. We have Bay Ridge Estates, Vista de Oro, drainage special tax, fire protection and preventions special tax, district number 1 wastewater assessment, and we do have district delinquent water charges. We do this annually at our July meeting. This is so we can submit this to the county to be collected, all the taxes to be collected that we're talking about here tonight. There's been some slight increases on some and no changes on others. Bay Ridge state assessment has not gone up. That had been going down over the last few years because of paying back loans, and getting rid of the septic system part. Fire protection goes up by the cost of living, which you approved that CPI back, I believe in May, I think it was 4.9%. Vista de Oro, they finally paid off their loan to the water fund, so they've stayed the same. Wastewater is just a very minor increase based on basically the service from MVS, who does the assessments for us. And then drainage remains the same. As far as the lien for water, delinquent water charges, that is in our Title II code that gives us the authority to do that. I believe we have only 2 accounts. One is a habitual one that we do every year, and there's one other. So we only have 2, and I forget the dollar amount on that. It's very minor. I think it's not important, but that's what I was thinking, around $700. So with that, I can answer any questions and we can take public comment, but otherwise, here's the very long motion before you.
Any questions from the board? Okay, we'll go to public comment for agenda item 2.
There is no public comment online. If you'd like to make a public comment and you're in the boardroom, please come up to the podium.
Okay, with that, we do not have public comment here in the boardroom. So this is a pretty standard operation. We do this every year, as complicated as it looks. It's just a standard operating procedure. So I'll entertain that motion.
I move that the board adopt resolutions as amended, 2023-23, 2023-24, 2023-25, 2023-26, 2023-27, and 2023-28 to levy the charges, special taxes, and assessments as listed separately in Exhibit A for Bay Ridge Estates, Vista de Oro, drainage, fire protection and prevention services, District Number 1 wastewater services, and district delinquent water charges, and direct staff to submit adopted resolutions. Do I put that? I'll just say as amended, and the tax rolls to the county for collection.
I'll second your motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I believe we need a roll call vote.
Director Womack,
Yes.
Director Fourcroy,
Yes.
Director Gatchel,
Yes.
Vice President Ohilsky,
Yes.
President Sisenia.
Yes. Okay, with that, we'll go on to general action item, agenda item 3. Introduction to optimized investment partners and investment updates. This is pretty exciting. Yeah, go ahead, take it away.
Okay. I do have a brief presentation, and online we do have representatives for optimized investment partners, which will provide some updates for you. Just wanted to go back through a little bit of background of how we got here tonight for this update. We'd been exploring options for investing in district funds. As you know, interest rates have been rising. Where we had our money sitting in a couple of banks were literally not earning investment or interest. It was around the 0.3 range, very low. So working with Director Womack, we started looking at options. We did receive presentations from 4 different sources. It was Wolf Hansen and Associates, the Optimized Group. We talked with Mechanics Bank and their investment arm of the bank, and we did receive some information, Pacific Premier, which was our other bank, on how we could invest in an array of CDs to stay within the FDIC, excuse me, limit. Using the information we gained from that in our investment policy as a guide, which we attached the policy, investment policy for you. Staff ultimately chose optimized investment partners. We did preview this at the Finance Advisory Committee meeting and got an opinion from them that, yeah, this would be a good move for us in many different ways. And so I moved forward with contracting with Optimize. So why did we go with them? They do focus on smaller governmental agencies. In fact, Oceano Community Services District has contracted with them. Cambria is looking at them. So they've spent some time here in the county. Plus they do look at agencies our size. We thought their contract conditions were very reasonable. It's a 3-year contract, but we do have a clause where we can terminate with a 30-day notice if we're not satisfied with what they've done. They have provided at no cost to us a look at our investment policy and recommended some updates that we'll be looking at when we do that at the beginning of the year next year. We had some cash flow modeling done by them. They reviewed a review of our investment revenue projections, which we'll hear about in just a moment, and other support services. And that's mainly some of the reporting that we'll do as part of our investment policy that comes back to the board. So what did we have to do to get this far? I had to go and we opened a custodial account with US Bank. We opened a brokerage account with Time and Value Investments. Opened an account with California Asset Management Program, better known as CAMP. It's a joint powers authority that provides investment services to public agencies. I transferred $7 million to the custodial account, which involved closing 2 of our Pacific Premier accounts and excuse me, and then moving the money from Mechanics Bank. Just yesterday, I did transfer $700,000 over to our CAMP account because of the interest it's earning. And that's one of our fully liquid accounts. It's if we need money into our checking, it's same day movement of cash. So that's kind of our backup. And we have left money, of course, in our in 2 of our accounts, or we actually have 4, but 2 of our main operating accounts at Mechanics Bank.
Ron, could you mention about like what our the $7 million is?
And that's coming up.
Okay.
Um,
What is this money? Where's it
We're,
from?
we're gonna.
Oh, I'm
get a
sorry. I can
presentation.
explain quickly where the money's from. Our two accounts over at Pacific Premier, one was for the water reserves, one was for the fire. The total coming out of there, I don't know exactly, but is about $4.7 million. Then we had a big cash balance in our checking account, which is mixed funds. If you go into the financials, there at the very back of the financials, right after the financial and the reserve information, there's a cash summary sheet that explains where all the money is currently, but we can go back and you could look at it. And our accountant, Adrian, keeps track of all the cash and where it is and what's reserved and what,
Right.
what's.
So basically we took fire reserves, water reserves, and some of our checking account.
And we did move money from LAIF.
Which is a mixed bag.
And that had a combination of water, drainage, and Parks and Rec. Yeah. And with that, we have, like I said, representatives from Optimized Investment Partners to kind of go through what they've been doing and where our investments are currently and what we project the revenue might be. So take it away.
Good evening, Honorable Board. Can you hear me okay?
You're a little
Excellent.
bit soft. You need a little louder.
A little louder on my end.
Yeah.
That's our system.
Do you guys have the ability to turn up my volume on yours? Let me see.
No, we can't hear that at all.
All right, I'll talk a little louder. Can you guys hear me okay now?
No.
Hmm. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you. It's just fuzzy or faded.
Yeah, I'm hearing you guys well when you're presenting, but I can't hear you well when you're speaking. I'm sorry.
Just one moment. For some reason, our speakers isn't projecting your voice very well.
Maybe something's, but it's up on.
Yeah, we've
Now.
putting another hat on.
Can you try speaking again, David?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay now?
Not too loud. One
Not too
more second.
loud.
We're trying a couple more things.
Okay.
Were you able to hear me when I was speaking earlier?
Yeah, so it's something here.
Oh, what did you just do?
I just turned my volume up to 100. Did that help?
That
That
helps.
is much better. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you so much. Should I go ahead?
Oh, you are good to go.
Excellent, everyone. Sorry for the brief technical difficulties. My name is David Bilby. I'm the president and CEO of Optimized Investment Partners. Really appreciate your time tonight, and I will keep this presentation brief, but I'd love to be able to answer any and all questions that you have about the work we've been doing over the last month with the district and the ongoing work we will be doing. Ron really touched on a few of the premises that are in the presentation tonight. Really, it's about taking what you've been doing and trying to improve both the safety, the liquidity, and the yield of your investments. And so really, we're talking about going from a passive management style, having money sitting in LAIF or sitting in a county pool, to actively investing it in the marketplace where we can keep your investments yielding current rates of return on an ongoing basis, and to be able to protect ourselves by investing out over a 5-year time frame that the government code allows and your investment policy also allows. So really, it's focusing on that 5-year time horizon We do that cash flow model to be able to make sure that we leave plenty of liquid money and short-term investments for your district to be able to make business decisions, operating decisions on a go-forward basis, while still taking advantage of locking in long-term high yields, the highest yields we've been seeing in over 25 years. So this is a great time for us to be able to invest in different safe investments at this time. Next slide. When we first met with the district,
Suggestion, because if there's any ambient noise, we can't hear you. Can we have them call in through the Zoom? That is the Zoom.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, sorry.
sorry. Next slide, Ron.
Yeah, my concern is that people are online.
But
when
online, you can hear it.
They can,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
that was my concern, but I don't think they can hear it, but.
So when we first met with the district, we looked at your financial statements, and Ron touched on this briefly already, that the checking account balance was pretty high, that you had some money in LAIF earning about 3%, and you had some other investments out there that were also earning around 3%. And today's market rates are around 5%. So really it was about how do we get the district earning market rates of return, but having a game plan on a go-forward basis to ensure sufficient liquidity that can cover us in the future. If there's a change in interest rates in the market, how can we lock in some investment returns for the district without taking on any unnecessary risks? So with that, we'll go to the next slide and we'll talk about the updated revenue projections. So when we first talked to the district, the original cash balance about a year ago was about $9.6 million. The updated cash balance as of a couple months ago is around 8.5 million. We were able to structure a portfolio size that allowed for investments from 1 year to 5 years in duration. That's maturing in 1 year to 5 years of about $5 million. And that's spread out over that time frame. That's called laddering the portfolio. So the reason we did that is so that we always have investments maturing in case the district decides next year we need an extra million of cash or 1.2 million of cash. Every year we're going to have that money coming back in that we can either reinvest or we can use it for the district's priorities at that time. The interest rate market has been very favorable to us over the last 6 to 9 months. Even since we met the district to the time that we priced, we were able to beat our original expectations on our long-term portfolio by almost 0.3%. So we ended up locking in on that long-term portfolio of about $5 million invested, a total yield of about 4.68%. So we'll talk about what that means in revenue in one moment. On the short-term side, that's including your camp account that Ron said he just funded with $700,000. It also includes some investments that are less than 1 year, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, investments that are also safe and are going to be maturing in the next 3 to 6, 9 months. So it allows for the district to bring that money in-house if needed for liquidity reasons. That short-term portfolio is yielding about 5.25%. So really, really favorable. And your average checking account balance, that's one of the things that we do with that cash flow modeling, is helping the district manage the cash flows on a go-forward basis to ensure that we don't leave too much money in the checking account. As Ron mentioned, can't provide same-day liquidity. So that means that he can request let's say you need an extra $300,000. He can draw that down prior to 10 a.m. any day that you want the funds and get that money on the same day. So you never have to worry about not having enough sufficient funds in the checking account, because before your accounts payable or payroll cycle is due, you're going to be able to draw down any funds needed. But $200,000 should be plenty of money on a month-to-month basis to get you through an ordinary month as your revenues and expenditures occur each month. With that, all the information I've provided so far, what we're projecting right now on the conservative side is the district is going to end up in 2023-2024 fiscal year is going to end up earning about $370,000 in interest income. That's well above the below $200,000 that the district was going to earn if it left the money in the places that it was. And we're comfortable saying that we feel this is a conservative projection. So unless interest rates change dramatically on the short end, which we think that the Fed is going to continue to raise rates or at least keep them the same for the foreseeable future. We project that that $370,000 will be a conservative estimate that you guys can use for budgetary purposes for 23-24. On the next slide, we're going to briefly talk about the portfolio structure. So this is really, we talk about safety first. So in the policy, your investment policy does allow for the district to take some risk. We chose not to take any unnecessary risk. And what I mean by that is that all the investments on your screen right now are either fully backed by the federal government, guaranteed by the federal government through the FDIC, or there's an outstanding obligation of the federal government to back these entities historically. So ended up investing about $3.5 million in federal treasury bills and notes. That is from 3 months all the way out to 5 years that some of those treasury bills and notes are in place. Federal agencies, which is like the federal farm group, commissions, some of the different banking sectors of the federal government. Those agencies, we invested up to $988,000. We were also able to get very favorable interest rates on certificates of deposit. You're only legally allowed to invest about 30% of your total cash portfolio in certificates of deposit. But because interest rates were so high, we went ahead and bumped up into that max of about 30% of the portfolio, and we're able to get additional interest there. And that's why the yields were significantly higher than we originally discussed with the district about a month ago. And then CAMP right now is earning about 5.2% in a fully liquid account. So that $700,000 that Ron mentioned will have that full liquidity, and the district will be able to draw down on those funds or add to those funds at its discretion. We're excited that's the end of our presentation for today, but I'd love to be able to answer any questions or get any feedback.
Yeah, questions from the board.
Oh, my feedback is on the 370,000 is nice.
I have a question about certificates of deposit. To what bank are we owning certificates of deposit to?
So in order to stay below the $250,000 of FDIC coverage, we went out and with our broker dealer and we shopped all the available banks in the country because they have that same protection. And so there's hundreds of banks that offer CDs across the country. Our broker dealer was able to find the ones that offered the best overall rates in the marketplace. And so I want to say that the total number of CDs we invested in is about 10. So we bought 10 different banks with 10 different CD offerings ranging from 1 year to 5 years.
To stay below the FDIC limit. I see.
That's correct. And we'll be providing reporting back to the district. Ron mentioned the quarterly reporting, so we'll be coming up with that in the next 35 to 40 days with information that answers that specific question with details of specifically what banks we bought, what treasuries, what the yields are. We just didn't have a whole lot of time between the time that we pulled the trigger on all this earlier this week and late last week and this board presentation deadline.
I have another question. How much did it cost us to move all this money out of those bank accounts we had here and then invest it into everything we just looked at?
So the cost from your banks probably was nothing or just wiring fees or something like that to actually move the money. The various contracts that you signed with myself, our company Optimized, US Bank as the custodial bank, and the broker dealer, those fees range. So our fee for the district is 12 basis points. That's 0.12%. So that's the cost of all the services we'll be providing to the district. So think of it just over 1/10 of 1%. So it's about 2% of what you're getting in revenue in total, about 2 to 3% in total revenue. The custodial bank charges just over 1 basis point. So on your whole portfolio of about $7 million, that's going to be about $700 a year for that. And there's a couple little small fees included in there. And then the broker dealer collects fees on through the individual investment. So you don't pay those directly. Those are collected indirectly by the broker buying at wholesale and selling at retail. So they make a few basis points on each investment. So there's no direct payment from the district to the agency. Did that answer your question fully?
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else on the board?
I just got one question on the laddering of the CDs. Especially as the longer term ones. Can you kind of give a general guidance of what penalties would be if we needed that money earlier? Just in general, because usually there's penalties if we draw out earlier, if we had emergency or something like that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that. So the way that we structured the investments, the first line of attack would be our checking account. The second line of attack would be the camp accounts, being able to fully take advantage of liquid funds that don't have a penalty involved. The third would be those federal agencies, federal treasuries and notes. So you see on the prior slides, there was about $4.5 million in federal treasury notes, bills, and agencies between the combination of the top two on your screen and then the camp account. So basically the district has almost $5 million that they could access in real time, because those federal treasury bills and notes and agencies, if the district needed more than $1 million immediately, we would be able to sell those treasury bills because that market is very mature and there's always transactions happening. CDs would be the last thing that we would recommend selling. So that would be your last $2.5 million. Would not recommend that because, like you said, some of those would come with specific penalties. But because we laddered those and we've got some maturing in a year or two or three, you're not talking about the full 2.5 million tied up. So if we did need to get to that point where the district was down to its last $2 million, you'd be liquidating the shorter investments first before the longer ones.
Yeah, okay.
Anything else from the board? Okay, we'll go to public comment for this agenda item.
If you'd like to make a public comment, please come up to the podium. There's no public comment online.
Okay, any in the boardroom here? Okay, with that, we'll bring it back to the board. Now, that was just an informational.
Informational only,
Item.
so there's no action
Correct.
needed by the board. And like we said, the quarterly reporting will be coming up and there'll be full, disclosure on numbers and investments coming.
Good. I think this is a good step. I mean, we use expert outside help for so many other areas. It's unreasonable to think that it's nice to be in a point where we actually have enough money to think about the fact that we need to hire some help.
And I really want to thank David and Robert from Optimized Investment Partners. They've been very helpful. And then True, I always get their name wrong. I want to say True Value, True Investment. Anyway, Aaron from that firm has been super helpful as well.
Good. Okay, good. With that, agenda item 4, we'll go on to that. Public comment for items not on the agenda.
If you'd like to make a public comment, please come up to the.
Hey, well, we're quiet tonight. No one online. Then we'll go to the administrative and committee reports. Fire department report is in front of us, and we have the chief here. Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Real.
We can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect.
Even without them.
Now you can hear me even louder. So, for the statistical report, had a little drop off in activity. We only ran 112 calls, majority of them being medical. We had a car fire and a couple of debris fires in the neighborhoods. A lot of public assists, some hazard calls. We had a few people digging and breaking some gas lines. So sure you call 311 before you go out and start digging in your yard. Make sure we identify where the gas lines are. As far as South Bay aid given to other agencies, we helped out the San Luis unit a couple times, and then the county area a couple times. And reciprocal, we got help from Morro Bay once, the county 6 times, and CAL FIRE 5 times. So still pretty even as far as us helping them and them helping us. So the numbers look pretty good there. Going on to the actual board report. So I was informed before I went on vacation in June, a project that Ron and I have been working on with Rob Jenkins, our EMS battalion chief, working on ambulance response times to Los Osos. And we found a kind of a deficiency. We brought it to the attention of the EMS agency and the ambulance provider. And through several meetings and, understanding where everybody's coming from, San Luis Ambulance has decided that it's in the best interest to place a 12-hour ambulance. And that's based on statistics. It's going to be from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Here in Los Osos. That's the peak call hours. Most of the calls are happening in that 12-hour time frame. So they'll be moving a unit out here. They'll be stationed right over by the skate park in that little 2-story commercial complex. They are using that unit to do interfacility transfers and out of the area transfers as well, but it should help with the ambulance response times, thus getting us off the scene available for the next call. So a significant upgrade in service to the community of Los Osos. It was kind of a long road and some definitely challenging conversations, but glad that it was San Luis Ambulance was able to come through and work with us to make it happen. So I think that's a huge win for the community. We were able to hire 1 new reserve firefighter. We had 2 candidates. One was unsuccessful in the physical abilities portion of our screening process. They had an existing injury, so they're going to come back once they're healed up and try again. But we got a good candidate, and we look forward to training her and getting her ready to go. Second round of vacant lot inspections is getting ready to start up on the 15th. We sent 129 notices on the first round. And looking around town and kind of what's going on, I think we'll probably be in a pretty double-digit number, maybe even single digits. Looks like people are taking it pretty seriously and getting a lot of good work done. So that's been good. So we've been meeting with U.S. Fish and Wildlife to talk about long-term projects and long-term solutions in Los Osos, both in the outlying areas, in the state responsible areas, but most notably here in the local responsible area. Specifically dealing with the Los Osos weed abatement ordinance. There's been properties that have been designated as exempt from doing weed abatement. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife regulation states that the exemption is good for 5 years and then they have to reapply for that exemption. There hasn't been an accurate list, so we've requested that anybody that has an exemption or feels they should be exempt work through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to provide us proof of that exemption so that we make sure that we're getting an accurate representation of who's exempt and what the habitat is. That being said, Fish and Wildlife has concerns. Obviously, the Morro banded snail has been delisted down to a threatened species, not an endangered species, but there's a couple other endangered species in the area, the Morro manzanita and the Morro kangaroo rat. I said that right? So we're working with them on getting guidances out to everybody. And so in the future, we'll be putting out guidances on responsible measures for mitigating your fuels on your property so that we're sensitive both to us and to the species. So good progress on that. We also met with the Dan Turner from the San Luis Fire Safe Council. There's been some changes in the Los Osos focus group, and there'll be some new leadership coming in. So Ron, I'll be meeting with them to identify some new projects. But one thing that has been kind of a thorn in getting some progress as far as long-term fuel reduction projects in the area is the California Wildfire Preparedness Plan specifically for Los Osos. That document was drafted, I believe, in about 2011, but it was never adopted. And so the Fire Safe Council has taken grant monies and they've hired somebody to go ahead and do a rewrite on that so that we can get a new draft and get that approved. And then that should help loosen up some of the restrictions or at least provide guidances so that we can actually get some of these projects that we talk about all the time actually start moving forward and getting them done. So once we get that, we'll be able to look at the fuel break or fuel reduction zone around the entire community and some of the interior areas of the community. So more good progress there.
Who has to approve that once it's?
There's a whole list of agencies that approve it, but essentially we'll bring it to the boards and it'll go through all the reviews. with our resource management folks, and they have all the regulatory folks that they talk to.
Got it.
There's so many acronyms, I can't remember any of them.
There's a list.
It's a big list. And so a lot of the agencies look to that document to establish their habitat conservation plans and mitigations and all that. And so it's going to be kind of the guidance for that. There's the bigger project that we're looking at, which will be the VTP, which is the vegetation treatment plan for Los Osos, which will be that thing I talk about, memorializing and having maintenance and a lot of these things that need to go on for a long period of time. So all the mitigations that are in there, a lot of blanket statements that'll last for a long time. So it's still a long ways out, but we're making progress. It's like little tiny steps, but it's a learning process, and it's actually happening. So
Yeah.
that's good.
No,
So
thanks,
that's
Chief.
good. So we're still working on getting out there and doing the hands-only CPR. Had a couple of snafus where we weren't able to get out there, but we do fully intend to get out to the farmer's market and get out there. I made that a priority for the guys to get out there and make sure that that's happening and getting that word out. We have been having a lot of CPR calls here in the neighborhood. So it's good to get out that word to everybody and just make sure that we give everybody a fighting chance. So CAL FIRE has completed all the 4291 inspections and defensible space inspections for the SRA areas. So that would be the Bayview Heights neighborhood, Cabrillo Estates neighborhood. So they've gone through and done all those. And Toro Camp completed a fuels reduction project in the Bay Oaks neighborhood on the district property. And that's the end of my report.
Good news about the ambulance being here in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw it parked in the parking lot there, and I think they have a little charging station that they've actually put in for it. And,
Yeah, so they have a computer system on board those.
Okay,
on
that's
the-
what I
on those
figured,
rigs, so
okay.
that's to support that, so it doesn't drain the batteries down.
Okay,
So yeah, we were looking at sometimes, some pretty extended response times because for some reason, this community, we tend to get a lot of multiple calls at a time. So in the simultaneous call rate, and this when we do the standards of cover study, hopefully we'll show the simultaneous call rate for the area, and it's kind of unusual. So because of the ambulance deployment model for the county, the ambulance be coming from a lot of different places. So we've had them coming from Napomo, we've had them coming from Atascadero. And at the end of the day, number one, that's delaying getting you to definitive care, because ultimately we only have things that can kind of postpone what ultimately needs to be done at the hospital. But keeping us committed on scene does not make us available for the next call. So while you're staffing at your fire station is a 4-person company, which gives you, in the event of a structure fire, that gives us the ability to immediately go into that building with meeting all the OSHA and NFPA standards. If one of those units is stuck on a call, we now are down to 2 people showing up to that call, and that changes how we do business. We may not be able to go interior and make an aggressive attack on the fire, thus any more property loss or potential loss of life. So it's a big win.
good. Good. Thank you.
Well, yeah, and thanks to Ron and Chief Jenkins for also pushing that through. That was a long conversation.
Very long conversation.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, the Sheriff's Department report. We have Sergeant Coyas.
Yes, sir. Can you guys hear me okay?
We hear you. pretty
Yes.
good.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Elliot Coy, Sergeant with Sheriff's Coast Station. So for last month, looks like our calls for service were 66 for Los Osos, just slightly up from this time last year, but more or less on par. We had 3 assault or battery calls, 37 disturbances, 1 burglary, 3 thefts, 3 vandalisms, no mail thefts, and no phone scams resulting in a loss, 19 suspicious circumstances calls, 89 proactive enforcement stops, and 39 preventative patrol activities, which could be foot patrol, extra patrols, things of that nature. And that's all I've got for the stats. Does anybody have questions for us?
Any questions from the board?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Highway Patrol. He's online.
Good.
Okay.
Yep, I'm here.
Thank
Can
you.
you hear me? I'll do the sound check as well.
Yeah, everyone's a little soft tonight, but we can hear you.
Okay, all right, very good. For the month of June, for the beat in and around Los Osos. We made one DUI arrest. And we had 4 collisions. All of those collisions were solo vehicle collisions. 2 of them did involve a DUI driver, and we arrested the driver out of 2 of those. And the other 2 were non-injury solo vehicle collisions. And none of those collisions resulted in injuries. So short and sweet for me for the month of June, and I am available for questions as well.
Any questions from the board? Good. We like short and sweet and no injury accidents.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
The Utilities Department report. We have a written report. Anyone have questions about what's there? Anything you want to bring out to us, Mr. Munns?
It's pretty straightforward tonight. You know, the updates, I have one in it's duplicate on the program Seawell. And Chief Province talked about the weed abatement activities, which it's very cost effective. We're using the Conservation Corps, and it's amazing the work they do in a short amount of time. So, and again, Chief Province has been very helpful in getting that done. A little bit of update on the Bay Oaks well. We're almost done with the design phase of that project. You'll see that on your August agenda to go out to bid. We will start the actual construction of the transmission main in July. That'll be mainly additional potholing needed. And then major work beginning in August. We're looking at horizontal boring to do that project under South Bay and possibly all the way down to Napomo. So we're working with our contractor Hartzell to get a price for that. And I think it'll even decrease the cost that we've identified for that project. Continue to work with FEMA, continues to be a challenge, but we're getting closer. I had a meeting today with our rep. It appears every time I submit information and it moves up beyond our representative, more questions coming down from above. So I'm continuing to try to gather the data and information. I'm hoping to have that done tomorrow. There'll be a couple of documents I have to wait for our environmental document from our biologist next week. We're making headway. And finally, it's not on here, but I always have to give a shout out to our staff. Ian Good and Nate Paul on 4th of July responded to a pretty good sized leak. I think it was on 14th Street. And so anyway, they were out there until they got to watch the fireworks going home. So it was a long day for them, and I have to just give them a shout out.
Of course, it happens on the 4th.
Right.
I have a question about the program Seawell. We're 71 weeks, 500 days for delivery of the electrical panel.
Yeah, I kind of,
When did the clock start on that?
it still hasn't. We're looking, sorry, I kind of missed that one. Working with the consultant, and we're looking at an alternative. That's if we buy a prefabricated panel, that's the lead time, and it's unfortunately that's not unusual. We're looking at maybe having it fabricated locally by maybe a company like FRM, who we do business with. Anyway, we're looking at alternatives. Otherwise, that's going to delay the project obviously quite a while. And what we're going to run into is it'll run us past our grant deadline. So Margaret, who has been amazing on keeping up with the grant submittals, has already notified our grant person that we will probably be asking for an extension.
An extension. Yeah, these things are out of your control. And I understand that. It's taken a year to get a refrigerator ordered and delivered, something that common, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Wow, still.
And we still haven't really heard back from PG&E. We have to establish a new upgraded service there, and we're not sure how long that's going to take as well. So the electrical stuff continues to be problematic.
Okay. Any questions from the board on the utilities or general manager's report?
I wanted to ask about revenue, because I know we had decreasing revenues, but our water production looks like it's back up. So is that looking more favorable?
I don't have an update on the numbers for that, because we'll get our last route read, it is down, and I didn't look closely. I think it is at around 4%. I think we're down 4 or 5%. I'm kind of looking at Richard because he notices these things too. Okay, so it's not as bad as it was,
Yeah.
of course. We really dropped off with the wet winter,
Mhm.
but we're kind of getting back. And then what the great thing about what we just heard on our investment report, a lot of that revenue is going to be water. So it's going to help alleviate our revenue stream. So haven't looked at that close enough to say what it actually means, but it is going to definitely help improve.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. If we can offset rate increases with earnings.
Right, and we've talked, we do have the rate stabilization fund
Right.
reserve, I mean. So, of course, we want to avoid rate increases, especially, we're in the second year of a 3-year. So anything we can do to avoid and not have to go out for another rate increase request.
Or on the other hand, just help us pay for the things that are getting more expensive.
Right.
Which is everything. Okay, with that, Chamber of Commerce report. Was that you?
Yeah, could you slide by me for a minute?
Sure. Okay. We will go on to the Community Advisory Council report. You've got a written report. I think one of the key things that came up this week was an equestrian group presentation. They're trying to preserve the east-west trail, kind of parallels Highland, that has been used for years and years and years, and it probably being part of the fuel break, this thing that we're trying to work out. Anyway, they asked for LOCAC support and got that. They're trying to keep an east-west connection for equestrians and acknowledging that they'll never be allowed back up into the Broders and the Morro Dunes Ecological Preserve, I think it's called. But they're trying to keep that lower connection. And that was quite a presentation that they had. There was not much from the county, and I meant to check and see if the Title 19 update had been approved. That was supposed to be by the end of June.
Yeah, the water offset study.
Yes.
Yes, it's been released. There's a public draft out.
Okay.
My intent is to take that through the UAC this month, and I'm trying to pull together enough information for a water item for the board in August. Because there's a lot of things going on. We've got a draft of our water resiliency intertie environmental constraints analysis also. So anyway, things are starting to move with the water stuff. So anyway, that'll be part of that.
Okay, good. Okay. Another thing that came from the LOCAC meeting is the county mentioned that FEMA had amended the emergency declaration regarding the February and March storms to include individuals as well as businesses. So if you've had damage, individuals, February and March storms, you can still contact readyslow.org for help with filing those forms. And let's see, there were some tree planting projects that LOCAC is getting ready to do along Palisades and in front of the community park. Land Use Committee did not meet due to some technical issues, but they mentioned that they're going to be looking at permit requests that have been coming in from people who recently purchased homes that had unpermitted improvements. And now they're coming in and trying to get permits for that kind of thing. So that'll be interesting to see just how many of those will be coming through. And I think that's kind of it from LOCAC. They had some bylaws issues that they dealt with and extended some terms from some people who had been termed out, but would have left their committees with some inexperience. So they made some adjustments there. And that was LOCAC. Okay, you ready?
Maybe. Okay, so Chamber of Commerce report. On the day after our last board meeting, we had the awards dinner for the community at the South Bay Community Center. Very, very well attended. Very, very fun event. I have to say that. Um, so, and I did bring up an issue that I've talked around about since then, but I'll bring that up at the end. So what we did was we acknowledged the new members of the board and the officers of the board, who are all new people that haven't been on the chamber before. The two long-term people there are myself and Jim Stanfield. But the primary thing that we did was give out the awards for the community. So first of all was the Citizen of the Year, which is not a chamber award, but it's an independent committee award made up of the people who've won it in the past. So the winner of Citizen of the Year was Paul Irving, which I think most of you know who Paul is. He's out on the bay every day taking photos and whatever. And a lot of what he does is not just for profit. His Big Sloth website is a lot of stuff, but he's out in the community almost every day. So Paul Irving was our Citizen of the Year. The Business of the Year was Los Osos Cares. And I think most of you are familiar with Los Osos Cares also. So they were the Business of the Year, and they help us work with members of the community who need help and can't go out and buy the help that they need. The Volunteer of the Year was Colleen Bichetti. So she did a lot of work last year, particularly on the Oktoberfest, which was the most profitable Oktoberfest we've had in ever. But those of you that went to Oktoberfest really saw how it had exploded from what it was like in the past. And I know the past few years have been COVID related, but she got Volunteer Year not only for her work on that, but for her work on various other committees too. So Colleen was the Volunteer of the Year. The Business of the Year was Pacific Capital Mortgage, primarily Kathy Bruska, who's the leader of that locally, and she's very, very involved in the community. The Volunteer of the Year was what do you call it? A co-award. We had two Volunteers of the Year. Amanda Esperanza, who works, my mind just went blank, at the Realty Place. What's the name of?
Energy Wise.
Yeah. And then Lynette Tornatsky, who has, as most of you know, she's written a book about the community and does a lot of research, and she's a very, very historical, knowledgeable person about the community. So they were the two Volunteers of the Year. And the last one was the New Business of the Year, which is Costa Mesa Art Gallery, which is over by the Limos property. So that was it, what we did. So it was a very, very fun evening. Our upcoming event is from July 15th to August 15th, which is our Festival of Flavors. In the past, we used to do Festival of Flavors at the community center and have everybody participate. This is more of a thing where you buy a coupon and then you're able to go to the various restaurants that are involved and either eat in or have carry out. So, and that goes from the 15th to the 18th. If you're interested in it, go to lobpchamber.org, which stands for Los Osos Baywood Park Chamber. And the tickets are available on there. And there's some weird thing that starts with a Z where you can buy your tickets. I'm not technically that adroit. So is it Zephy or something like that? What? Oh, okay. But you can buy them online through that vendor. Okay. I'm sorry, I talked too long, but
You had a big annual event.
yeah, it was good.
Thank you. Let's see where we at. Parks and Recreation. Did we have a committee meeting?
We did. We had a meeting in June, and mostly what we talked about was the need for more parks in the community and how we can go about influencing that as a district. So we kind of broke that into two separate areas of interest or focus, one being a long-term vision, and something else being the short-term, what can we do right now? And Ron gave a great presentation. He's been working with LOCAC, and he's going to continue to work with LOCAC, and we're going to join together a little bit to address our needs. We heard again from a packed house full of pickleballers about the need for pickleball courts. And we're going to have a presentation, a joint presentation from South Bay Soccer and Coast Little League coming up, which represents well over 800 families in the community, about their challenges with procuring fields and practice times and game times and field conditions. And I think the long-term piece is looking like we need to address the community plan update, and then our community park. It has its own master plan and the vision for what that's going to end up as. And the short term is to hopefully unite all of these different groups and work with the school district. And I think our goal is to end up with a memorandum of understanding, an MOU between, we don't know who it's between yet, but probably between each one of these groups and the school district, to just ensure that, because those are our public facilities at this point, so we need to be able to utilize those. Anything else, Ron?
No, you covered it very well.
So that
was a great meeting. We had.
Yeah. Very good meeting. We're constantly learning more and more about pickleball, and the pickleballers have formed a nonprofit, and they are actively working to improve their ability for Lososians to play pickleball. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if it's possible for the pickleballers to talk to maybe the middle school, because they don't do much tennis at the middle school. I wonder if they'd be willing to convert. I mean, I don't know that they would. It just seems like,
well, it sounds, from what they told us, it sounds like they're in talks with the school district. And I think there's things around the time that they're able to use the courts. Those
Like
folks are
nights,
using
right.
them all throughout the middle of the week and morning, noon, and night, basically. So
They are looking at Sunnyside as an alternative.
oh, that would work too.
Because of the large blacktop area, but it need to be refinished or, upgraded and nets and all that added.
I know the middle schoolers do pickleball, and they don't have the equipment to do tennis. And I think they do the pickleball on the blacktop. It just seems like maybe they could use,
I think it
Pickleball, and then-
revolves around the access during
Yeah.
school
Yeah.
hours,
well,
that
they
would be
wouldn't
the
have
hard
access during school.
which is pretty much when those folks are out there.
My first suggestion, Sunnyside, resurface the blacktop, and because of the land is going to be the expensive part, I think. But the more groups that we have raising a voice, the more likely we are to make something happen. And thank you for continuing that. That's just an ongoing need in this community, has been and will be. Okay, Utility Advisory Committee report. We'll combine that with the Basin Management Committee meeting report. In addition, we have a lot of projects going on, as Ron mentioned. We've got the Intertie, I guess, is heating up. The environmental documents coming. That was news. I didn't really realize
Yes,
that.
that just came in this week.
Okay, and then some of the things from the Basin Management Committee this past month. As everybody probably knows, the DWR aerial electromagnetic survey was postponed until fall from bad weather. Cleve Harris, geologist, has completed the well database, so that'll be presented at a future BMC meeting. We've got finally a good database of all the wells, where they're at. Not monitoring information for all those wells at least, but we've got a good picture of where they're at. Let's see, the Skyline well was mentioned, the new Skyline well that will be receiving that grant from the NEP from. That's a big deal, getting that done. The Title 19 study was mentioned. No date for the Coastal Commission to hear an update on the community plan. See, recycled water site plans completed by fall. The big thing was the final approval of the 2022 monitoring report sent to the judge to satisfy the requirements of the stipulated judgment. And if you remember, I think the key takeaway there was that was not including information from this last winter. So it was monitoring from last fall. It compared to the fall before that. It was a very dry year, if you remember, very, very dry. Probably what, third driest in history, I think. But we held our own. We did not lose ground with water levels and that kind of thing. So that was good. The preliminary data for spring monitoring is out. And this wet winter, no surprise, it looks like we gained about a 1.8 feet, almost 2 feet of water in the levels in the wells. Chlorides are a little bit dicier. It looks like zone E, we're still seeing some troubling areas. Zone D, it looked like chloride retreat. So all in all, that was good. Nitrates are still causing us problems. Let's see. Consideration of a new program, Seawell. I think that was the Base Management Committee where the technical difficulties resulted in the fact that we could not really discuss that but it'll be brought back. We're talking about another well, as we talked about a site further east in the Buckskin Andre neighborhood before the Bay Oaks well was decided upon, that location. Well, we're going to be back maybe looking at a third program Seawell off to the east there. A lot of discussion about the Broderson leach field and what the monitoring there seems to mean. It looks like maybe the levels are it's slowing down, I guess is the way you'd say it. The recharge there, or the filling of the leach fields is leveling off maybe. And so we don't know if we're going to get to what we thought would be 100% full and functioning leach field. And who knows what that means. Yet it relates to our sustainable yield and targets and that kind of thing. But with the grant that's coming from DWR, we'll have a transient model. We're going to have a better picture of just what is happening with those leach fields. So all in all, it's continue to monitor. Water levels are now about where they were in the 1970s. That's really exciting news. Of course, then they were crashing down, headed way down fast. And now we're at least building them back up. So hopefully the salt criteria will follow, but the water level looks good. And I think that was it from the BMC and utilities. Finance Advisory Committee.
Mostly the regular, we had Lisa recommend approval of the warrant register and also recommend that we receive and file the financial reports. We had some attendees. I'm hopeful that some of them might join the FAC. Did anyone fill an application?
Yes, we just received one tonight from Chuck Cribbs.
Thanks, Chuck.
And we do have,
I've spoken to another person who will be filing an application.
and so
What?
we've got
Oh,
quite a
thank
few
goodness.
applications now,
All right, we could have a full
We
committee.
look like we have enough to get to a full committee.
possibly. Yeah.
So
Maybe even
thank-
have a quorum.
Yeah, so thanks for the referrals and thanks for filling the application, so. That looks good. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. No emergency services committee meeting. Directors' announcements of district and community interests and reports on attendance at public meetings, training programs, conferences, and seminars. Anything to share?
Just briefly, Chuck and I met with Ron as part of our ad hoc committee looking at the Cabrillo Basin. Just kind of reviewing where we're at with our temporary repairs and continuing the discussion about what our what our final plan is going to be and how we're going to get to that point. So not a lot of, we didn't come to any real, obviously no decisions, but just renewing that conversation after, we got to this milestone of we have a temporary fix in place, but we still need to get to the permanent solution. So that's going to be an ongoing discussion for everybody here.
And related to that, I want to mention some conversations that have been happening around the lack of a true emergency response center, that whole event. People meeting in the parking lot at Ralph's. We didn't have power. We didn't have a place for people to go. So there's been a lot of talk about trying to secure grant money to turn the community center into more of an emergency response center. Have generators so that when the power goes out, we have power. I had heard some rumors about some of our emergency equipment being stored in Morro Bay because we didn't have room. That doesn't help when South Bay Boulevard's flooded. So I know that there's dialogue that's going to be happening. Everything from moving the sign over to the other side of the road by the Red Barn, making it more of a changeable message sign so it can be updated quickly and easily. Improved facilities at the community center is what we're looking for, so that we are ready the next time that something happens. Because we survived this one, but it was dicey for a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So response to previously asked questions. I think we probably we're dealing with everything. Okay. So anyone want to pull anything from the consent agenda?
I don't want to pull anything, but I just think for clarification, Ron, when you look at the agenda and it talks about sole source, I think that people don't know what that means. I know what it means, it's talking about coverage and services to the community, but as far as if I was just a member of the public reading the agenda, I would have no idea what the sole source contract meant. So I think in the future, as far as that goes, it'd be helpful to clarify the sole source contract for, community service coverage or whatever you want to call it.
Probably a better term is non-competitive contract.
Well, even non-competitive, I just want to make sure everybody understands it's about the services provided, emergency services provided to the community.
Okay.
Because it took me a while to figure that out. I had to read the actual report. Okay, so I will go ahead and make my motion.
We
I need to take public comment first.
For items on the
I'm sorry,
administration.
Matthew. I
You
jumped
got
the
me
gun.
excited. I was ready.
I know.
Oh, okay. We'll take public comment for items on the administrative and committee reports and the consent agenda.
We do have one.
Richard Margison, just a couple quick questions. Matthew, did the pickleballers have any cost estimates for anything like the resurfacing or any of that stuff? That's one question. And then the Title 19, have you gotten any indication, Ron, when that's going to the board, soups? And is it online for the general? It is online. Okay.
Do you recall the cost estimates? Because I don't know, there was one for like a new court.
Yeah, they had.
You
a
might
cost
want to close
estimate.
public comment before you.
Yeah, do we have any additional public comment online here in the boardroom? Okay. We'll bring it back to the board. Go ahead.
There was a cost estimate. I believe it was to build a new court. And it was very generalized number. Didn't have a lot of detail. They were going to go back and work towards getting a sharper number.
Yeah,
is what I
it was
remember.
very expensive, if I recall, around $200,000, something like that. 200,000. If I remember correctly.
We didn't have anything about like resurfacing Sunnyside.
Yeah, if to do the resurfacing at Sunnyside would be different, but that was like. Yeah. And the water offset study is available on the county's website. I think we should post it on our website, Laura. That way it'd be
That'd be a
easier
good idea.
for the
yeah.
public to find. It's always a challenge.
And Claire Momberger from the county planning and building said at LoCac that no hearing date has been set yet because it's just been released for public comment and they expect a lot.
Mhm. Yeah, and I wanted to piggyback on the pickleball. I was surprised to read the other day that pickleball is the largest growing recreational activity in the United States. So there's a lot of demand for that, not just locally.
And there's a lot of support. They have a lot of community members. And they're
Very
active.
passionate.
It's great.
You can catch their tournaments on television already.
Yeah. Is it time
Okay,
for a motion yet?
it's time for a motion.
Oh, I will go ahead and make a motion that the board receive and file the administrative and committee reports and approve the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
Let's see, do we have?
Need a roll call.
Yeah, we need a roll call.
Vice President O'Hilski,
Yes.
Director Forcroy,
Yes.
Director Gatchel,
Yes.
Director Womack,
Yes.
President Sisenia.
Yes. Okay, no pulled items, future agenda items anyone wants to see here at the moment, because you can always get them to Mr. Munns any day of the week. Okay, any closing board comments?
Yeah, could I just talk for a quick minute?
Sure.
I talked to Ron about this, and this goes back to the awards dinner. All the other governmental agencies that are there are giving out a certificate of recognition. And actually, I sat with all the other governmental people, and so I was suggesting that the board consider doing certificates of recognition of our own. So when, Citizen of the Year is recognized or whatever, not only does Bruce Gibson give an award or Laird or Carball or whatever, but we're also in that heap giving awards. And that would apply to, people helping people and all kind of things. So
Our committee members, the people who have served on our.
or whatever. I just think that it's something that I raised with Ron. I'd like to see us addressed in the future is just the board having the ability to do certificates of recognition.
That's a great idea.
We'll try to do it next year.
Future recognition, future agenda items. I'm
Future
sorry.
agenda.
We do have individuals worthy of recognition working for us. That's for sure. Yeah. Okay. Okay, with that, we're adjourned and we'll be back in a month. August, I'm not even sure what the date is, but first Thursday in August. It's good to see Mr. Green back with us.